Yes, we should get started.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone who's joining us remotely. My name is Hashmat Khan, and I am a professor in the economics department and also the current chair of the department. So welcome to the event. One of our panelists is not here yet. As you can see that the weather today is not the kind of weather we were expecting. But she should be here soon. So I wanted to mention that this event is being recorded, and you will be able to send in your questions directly as a private chat, and then we will be able to pick up those questions. The title of this event is Jobs for International Students After Graduation. So let me just quickly describe how we're going to set this up. So first, I'll introduce the panel to you. And we have an excellent panel. All three panelists are Carleton alumni and graduates from the economics department. Let me first start with Andrea Alvarez Delgado. Andrea is from Mexico and graduated from our department last year, 2022, with a bachelor in economics, a concentration in data science, and minor in statistics. I should add that Andrea is our first graduate from the economics data science concentration. So thanks, Andrea, for being part of the panel today.
Thank you for having me.
And our second panelist is Dr. Mumtaz Ahmad. Mumtaz completed his PhD in economics in 2021, and his expertise is in the area of macroeconomics and international monetary economics. Our third panelist, Fouzia Khan, is a graduate from our MA program, and she graduated in 2020, and she's the one who got delayed and should be walking in any minute. So each panelist, I have asked each panelist to speak for about 8 to 10 minutes. And then after that, we will open it up to Q&A. So those of you who have questions or attending and have any kind of any questions of any kind, you just please send it to us in the chat, and we will pick it up from there. So just before we turn to our panelists, I want to give a quick context to why we're doing this event. And it really happened at the alumni mixer that we organized back in December. And I was talking to some alumni who are international students and who are currently working in Ottawa area. And then I was also talking to our current students, international students who are interested in jobs. So later on after the event, I was thinking that maybe it would be really good if these two groups sort of met and talked and shared information. Of course, our alumni event was a huge success, but there is always limited time and it's not possible to make these connections. So kind of having this targeted event made sense. Couple of other points I want to say to set the stage here is our department, the Department of Economics, has a very large international footprint. So one of the, what do I mean by that? Well, almost 40% of our students are international in all our programs. And another important aspect is that we are in the Faculty of Public Affairs here at Carleton, and a third of the international students in the faculty are econ students. So we have a very big international footprint. We have 32 full-time, regular full-time professors in the department, and half the professors are originally outside. They came to Canada from outside, from other countries. Okay, so it's a very international aspect to our department, both from a student side and from the faculty side. So in general, job market outcomes, the job market possibilities for all students is front and center on our radar. But today's event is a little bit narrower focused on international students and the challenges that international students face upon graduation. So today's focus is on this particular group. And going beyond our department, and I know many of you are outside the economics department, so what you might hear today would resonate with you. So it's not really specific to economics per se, but their experiences that our panelists would share, I'm sure would resonate with you and would be useful for you. Now, as I myself was an international student, and back in the day when I was an international student, there were hardly any opportunities to do work outside the economics department or outside the department where you work. There was absolutely, you could not work. You were prohibited to work outside. So of course, things have changed a lot over the years. So as you know, the federal government is targeting close to 500,000 immigrants by year 2025. And data show that 3/4 of international students apply for postgraduate work permit. Okay, 3/4. And 2/3 of those would then go on to apply for permanent residence status. So international students who are coming to Canada into our programs, into universities, and then graduating and becoming high quality professionals in their area as they complete their programs and their training, they are well poised to enter the Canadian job market. So this is the sort of the context I want for everyone to keep in mind as we start. So let me now turn to our panelists, and let me start with Andrea, and I'll go around asking questions, but the set of questions that I have is really for all three panelists. And if you could talk about yourself, your background, the program that you did, and how you went about your job search, what challenges you faced, and what advice you would have for our listeners today. And then we can, I might ask some follow-up questions, but those are the sort of things that I would ask all three panelists. So I will now step out and I'll let the panelists take over. So Andrea, please, floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Alvarez Delgado, and I am from Mexico, from a small town called Morelia in the center of Mexico. It's not the coast. I moved here 4.5 years ago for university, and I completed the Bachelor of Economics. I was honored to be the first student to successfully complete the data science concentration, and I minored in statistics. A little bit around how I ended up in the job where I'm currently at is, while I was a student in 3rd year, I wanted to gain professional experience and be able to see how everything that I was learning in university would be applied to the real world. So I started applying for internships, but this was hard because this was during the pandemic. So both school and all of the work environment were getting adapted to, have classes remotely and work remotely. So a lot of those internships actually got canceled. Oh. I applied to many online, I don't know, 25 plus, I lost the count how many I applied to, but all within, the field that I wanted, which was economics and data science. And yes, so how I ended up in this internship that would boost up my career is I actually was studying for finals. I was taking a break and checking my junk email. So lesson of the day, always check your junk email. I came across this email from Human Resources at CDW. They wanted to interview me. And well, I was really interested in this role. So I replied right away with availability for that same day. 2 hours later, I was being interviewed by the team lead and the manager. So shout out to Tom and Michael if they're watching these. The interview went great. I felt very welcomed. The team was really nice. Their expectations matched with my qualifications, and my expectations for the role were just as they described them. I think a key factor for all of these was the data science concentration. So luckily, that concentration opened 6 months before that summer. Previous to that, I took some courses on the finance and the computer science concentration, which really played in favor of completing the curriculum for data science. And a couple of days later, after the interview, I heard back from them with an offer for the summer internship. I was back home in Mexico because school was remote. So for the summer, I came back to Canada. I started working. I was able to apply a lot of the stuff that I was learning in class, hands-on the real world. And I also learned a lot of new skills there as well. They gave me this project on report automation, which was really interesting. I was learning a lot and they were happy with my work. So by the end of the summer, they offered me a part-time internship for the rest of the school year. And well, I was very excited, obviously, but at the same time, I was hesitant in terms of I was taking a full-time course load for the fourth year, and then a part-time job, it would be challenging, but I thought, I mean, it's time, let's do it now. Obviously, time management was key for all of these. I continued mostly working on that project, which has a lot of visibility around the company, and a few other projects. And well, by the end of the fourth year, I was offered the full-time position as an associate BA, business analyst. And I've been there for 6 months now. I really like it. I am now working towards the data science side of the role. I really, really enjoy it. And I would say that some of the tips that I have for international students is, well, the economics field is very competitive, and look to build your degree and your skills to make you outstand out there. So for example, data science field has a lot of demand right now, and there's not a lot of people to fill in these roles. So yeah, it's definitely not an easy field, but I find it very interesting and it's definitely very rewarding. Another thing would be to take courses or certifications. There's a lot online that many of them are very, very affordable or even free. I took a lot of them, or a couple of them in a paid, can I say the name?
Sure, yeah.
Coursera, it's good. I mean, it makes you stand out on your resume, and it also helps you to build your skills. So that's my recommendation.
So you were applying for internships while you were doing your courses.
Yes.
And so how was that process? So you were kind of focusing on your courses, but at the same time you were thinking about internships. So how did you manage your time, and how did you sort of think about that?
Okay, so for the summer internship, I started applying by the end of the semester. I applied on my free time, and that took some time, but that went out well. In the summer, I was not taking any courses, so the internship was full-time. But then when the final year, when I was working part-time and taking a full course load, I managed to set up all of the classes from Monday to Thursday. And then I could do one full day of work, and the rest of the days, it was like a couple hours during the day.
Okay, good. Well, we'll cycle back to Andrea. Okay. And Fouzia is here, delayed by the snowstorm.
Apologies.
Yeah, no, not a problem. I had, so Fouzia had already mentioned that you graduated from the master's program in 2020.
Yes.
And you're currently working at Alterna Bank, right?
Yeah.
So maybe Fouzia, I'll turn to you now, and maybe you want to share your experience and how you went about your job search after graduation, and what were the challenges you faced, and successes, and some strategies that you would want to share with our audience.
For sure. First of all, I'd like to give a little bit of my background. I'm Fouzia Khan, as you have mentioned, and I'm from Bangladesh. I'm a single mom of a beautiful boy. I came here in Canada in 2019 with my 8-year-old boy, and my son started Carleton before he started his own school. So because we had the comprehensive course that we had to take in August, so he used to come with me in Carleton, and he used to sit back and like do his stuff. And later on, he used to complain why his school is not as big as Carleton, why his school doesn't have vending machine and all that, you know. But it was a roller coaster ride for me. So it was a my second master's, and I had 10 years of study gap.
I see.
But I got immense support from my professors and my classmates. So most of the time, like school used to go on like strike, and my son used to come with me. Like he was an econ student, the youngest one. The reason of telling all this is like, even though I finished my master's, when I landed on the job market, I found myself like that part was easier. So I found it that tough. It was so stressful.
I see.
And the way I navigate is I make myself more resourceful. Like I used to attend any workshop. I used to attend all the networking sessions, you know, like I used to collect each and every tips that I can collect, you know, and I used to adopt them. And as my previous panelists mentioned, I also took online courses. When I
that was you, sorry to interrupt, you were doing that after the completion of your
my
master's program.
Yes. So when I,
right.
Yeah. So even when I was a student, like, because when I was doing my master's program for the student council, we have different kinds of job searching programs. So I used to attend them. I used to attend all the workshops. And when I started job search, because I had the concept that online search is the best thing, but I found out that that's the last option you should go for. So the first thing that works better for me and for most of my friends is networking. Like you need to expand your networking as much as you can. And you cannot be shy. You have to get out there and you have to present yourself, let people know that you're looking for a job and let them know like what your expertise in. For example, I have a concentration in financial economics. So I was looking for jobs that's based on finance. So to all the graduates who are going to the work market soon, my suggestion would be like prepare yourself as much as possible. There is no exception. There is no alternative of networking. So that's, even now I go to networking programs. So that works most. And another thing I did, because I was kind of desperate, I prepared my resume. I looked at the jobs that was available online and prepared my resume, and I went by myself. It was kind of proactive initiative, which some of my employer liked, you know, like she's proactive.
So you actually went to the
organization. So that gives you an extra edge, like, oh, she's not just applying, she's really, really motivated to work, you know? So that's another tips I would suggest. Yeah.
And yeah, no, that's really interesting that you had a young child.
Yeah.
Certainly a very unique experience.
Yeah.
We'll cycle back and so maybe now I'll turn to our third panelist, Dr. Mumtaz. So
thank you, Hashmat. My name is Mumtaz Ahmad, and I came to Canada in 2012 as an international student. First, I completed a master program in economics from Memorial University of Newfoundland, and then I joined Carleton University for the doctoral program. And luckily, I got you as my supervisor for the doctoral thesis. You know,
I was lucky.
After, you know, during the PhD program, I got opportunities to teach undergrad students different courses like intermediate microeconomics, econometrics, macroeconomics. Why I'm mentioning this, because that helped me later on in the job market. So that's one part. And secondly, we have a PhD committee that help international students or even domestic students to prepare for job market in terms of resumes, in terms of CVs, in terms of like web page, in terms of econ job market opportunities and how to approach those opportunities. So currently I'm working as a contract instructor at Carleton University. I also work at part-time Toronto Metropolitan University and Wilfrid Laurier University as a part-time lecturer. Well, after my graduation in 2021, I faced a couple of challenges as an international student. The first challenge, like after COVID-19, is to maintain immigration status in Canada, because after COVID-19, processing times like unprecedented, never observed in history. For example, permanent resident applications like supposed to wait like 27 months to get permanent residence. And for postgraduate work permits, it's like at least 4 to 6 months to get postgraduate work permit. So once you apply like for postgraduate work permit after graduation, you get a kind of implied status in Canada. So that means you can continue to work with the current employer. So I continue to work with Carleton University as a contract instructor. But later on, I applied for track positions, economist positions, because after doctoral studies, that's where we focus as a graduate. That's where our training should take us to as a tenure track positions, academic positions, or economist or analyst positions. But most of these positions like requires a security clearance. That means like you need to have a citizenship or permanent residence. And I was shortlisted for most of the positions. I made some progress up to interview, but then at some point you get to know that, okay, because you don't have a status in Canada in terms of permanent residence or citizenship, so that means you are no more in the selection process. And the second challenge is to overcome, this tunnel effect, as an international graduate student, you see your classmates are getting hired for tenure track positions who have status, or getting hired for government positions as an economist or analyst, but you are just waiting for, clearance in terms of, status, permanent residence status, citizenship. So that, when tunnel effect sets in, I think the second major challenge for international doctoral graduate is to overcome this tunnel effect. So the way I manage this tunnel effect is I started to search for positions where PR or citizenship is not the main requirement, but the main requirement is your qualification, background, and experience. And that's where my teaching experience at Carleton University helped me to get hold of contract position at Toronto Metropolitan University and contract position at Wilfrid Laurier University, because these contract positions require experience and academic background and expertise in your field. So that's where I would say like Carleton University provides unique opportunities to doctoral students to go into classroom and teach undergraduate courses, and that prepares you for the academic positions. So secondly, I polished my research. I prepared my research work for publication instead of like that excitement on graduation to disappointment not being selected for tenure track position. I focused on my research and polished my research work for publication. I submitted a couple of to a couple of journals, and that provided me another opportunity. They offered me to review papers in my field, so that added value to my CV. So now I'm not only working as a contract instructor, I added like a couple of more research papers to my research portfolio, but I'm also working as a reviewer for other research papers. And third thing I did is like I looked for opportunities in terms of research projects, and I ended up with a couple of research projects. For instance, currently I'm working on a research project that is funded by WTO. I have a partner from other countries, and we are looking to identify different ways to improve export potential of some developing countries. So I would suggest international doctoral graduate students to like stay focused, improve your research work that you did as a doctoral student and try to get it published, improves your research portfolio, and then try to search for jobs that are like more relevant to academic positions, but try to search for job that requires academic background, not required, PR, permanent residence or citizenship, but over, couple of months or years, you will end up with, PRship and citizenship, and that will open up more opportunities for full-time and permanent positions in academia. that's why that are my recommendation to graduate students.
Thanks, Mumtaz, for sharing that. We have quite a few people attending this session online, and what I'd like to do is take some questions that are coming in, and so maybe we'll go in the same order as the panelists spoke. So the first, one of the questions is for Andrea. Andrea, what platforms were useful when you were applying for internships, like websites, career fairs, anything specific?
I would say the career fairs that Carleton offers, they are really good for networking and for applying or getting contacts at different companies. That's first. And the second one, I would recommend LinkedIn. It's really good. They post basically anything there. Internships, full-time jobs, part-time. So those are the two that I would recommend.
And could you tell our viewers when those fairs are organized, what time of the year, or are there multiple fairs?
Well, I believe here in Carleton, I believe there are multiple across the semester. So just stay connected to, for example, here the Department of Economic Socials, because they usually post them. Yeah, post them. Also walking around universities, sometimes from other departments, they bring other companies like in University Center. I think it's really helpful. And yeah.
Usually in our department around October, we invite a lot of external employers to come and give presentations to students, and that offers a networking opportunity and also information on what's out there. So I guess so that's certainly very, very important. Fouzia, what was the timeline? This question for you. Okay. What was the timeline for your job search? How long did it take after your master's to get your first job?
Okay, so for that, I would like to circle back to our PhD panelist, because I was also applying for the government jobs and as an economist, but I was really getting disheartened because I was not even getting a call, because I didn't have the PR or I didn't have the citizenship. So I tried that first, and then some of my friends suggested like the Canadian companies, they want to see like you have the exposure to the Canadian market. So start with anything. So I started my first job. I used to be a TA in Carleton. So that was my only exposure to the Canadian economy or my job in Canada, because I had a kid. I couldn't work even at Walmart or like the students used to do. I couldn't do any of them. So I first got my job in Lint. I was exclusively searching for government jobs for 3 months, and then I felt like it's not gonna take me anywhere. So I started at Lint. I worked there for a month, and then I felt a great difference, because when I was mentioning that I'm working at Lint, I started getting more calls. So the employer wants to know that you have the exposure to the Canadian market. You have any kind of experience, like if you have dealt with customers, so you can apply that to any kind of customer service. If you have done any kind of analysis, so you can use it. So I started in April. It didn't take much long to get the job in or like Lint, but then I got my first job in Scotiabank as a financial advisor. So that happened in, I think, within 1 month, because I was networking with people, and I also, as I mentioned before, I was also making physical contacts to them. So I got a phone call first from the HR. So they did my interview. The interview went really well. Then they referred me to the branch directly where I was posted, or I was supposed to be posted. I got my interview and it went really well. They liked me, and that's how I got the job.
I see.
Yeah.
So within about
within a month.
Within a month.
Within a month.
Yeah.
But it has to be like, it has to be through some kind of networking. But if you just apply online, I don't know like how long it can take. So that's my experience. That's what for me, my networking worked best for me. And I will also suggest the newly graduates to do that. There's no alternative of that.
One question is how to. There's a lot of information on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of ads appearing, and how to kind of verify what's genuine and what's a real opportunity, and there might be some scams in there as well, right? So how do you any advice on how do you go about verifying?
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Because I have a first-hand experience of scam.
Oh, okay.
And the scam came to my Carleton email. And I was searching for a job that time, and they were sending phishing email like, oh, you can work from home and like $450 per week. So I would suggest whenever you see that kind of post, just try to find that person in LinkedIn. So I did my research. I found that people, but their profile was kind of sketchy, you know. And then I was just, because I was desperate at the time, I was looking for jobs, and I just said, hey, okay. They said, you don't need to have a bank account. You don't need to have experience. They didn't even ask for my resume. They said, you can start working. And the way they were mentioning, like, I'm going to send money from Australia, and you just have to put it in like they're donating to some organization. And then it clicked in my mind, because I'm from banking background, because I know it's online banking. You don't need to send someone from Australia. You can send money to Canada, like anywhere. So then I figured out like it's a money laundering case, and thank God I very politely like denied them, because I don't know like how much, what they can do. So I just very politely denied. So my suggestion will be never ever for anything easy, there's something wrong. Even for the lead job that I got, I had an interview for over an hour. Like she was taking, it was during the COVID, and I had to sell myself like hell. But that person said, oh, you're hired, you're so qualified. They didn't even ask anything. So whatever is very easy, that comes so fast, be cautious.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good point. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I would also suggest doing research. If you see the ads, do research on the company, or whoever sends you the ad. Also look for their LinkedIn or just on Google. There has to be some information. And I think, yes, in this case, Google is our best friend to make sure that the company is legit.
I would like to add one more point. If you get like these kind of opportunities, like try to find like physical location or addresses. For instance, if somebody is offering a job from Ottawa, you should know where is the office, where it is located, whether the numbers are valid or not, contact information is valid or not. Like, for example, fax number or telephone number, you can call that number and see what you get from a response from that location. So if there is no physical location, that's most probably is, is a scam.
That's a good point. Now, one question that we're getting is about the length of the resume. So how should it be, 1 page or 2 pages? What's your experience on how do you put it all together? I know it's different for different situations, but what's the advice on that?
Well, to me, I don't know. I attended many sessions that Carleton offered in terms of how to polish your resume and what works best and not. And they usually always recommended, keep it as, well, obviously put yourself out there and everything that you've taken, like all the courses, everything, but don't make it too long, no longer than 1 or 2 pages. If you can fit it all in 1 page, that's perfect.
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So resume is a very important part of your job searching. So when you apply for a job, you have to match the first 3 to 4 criteria. That's a must, like you have to prove one way or other, like you have done this in your life and you can do this. So that's very important. Even like if your resume is 1 page or 2 page, it doesn't matter, but you have to match the criteria that the employer is looking for. Otherwise, they won't even look at it. And there are some software that like they use for the big organizations. They don't like pick up the resume in person. They use some kind of software. They will just match their criteria. So it's very important to tailor your resume. It's not like never ever use a generic resume for all the application. So your resume should be tailored for every job that you're looking for. So that's very important. And my suggestion would be try to limit it within 2 pages. It should not be more than 2 pages at any cost.
Yeah. Maybe I'll ask a question, Mumtaz. Looking at the contract instructor positions, which in Ontario, there are quite a few positions that come up how do you go about sort of doing that? You go to the economic jobs forum and then you find it there, or you go to the websites, and what's the process of?
Well, for contract instructor position, this is totally different from tenure track positions, because most of the universities post their tenure track positions on econ job market. But the contract instructor positions are basically universities post on their web pages. It's not econ job market. So like the two I mentioned, like I'm working part-time, Toronto Metropolitan and Wilfrid Laurier, I got based on networking. Like somebody from the faculty and reference told me, okay, there are opportunities, you should apply for the opportunities. And when you apply for those opportunities, they also ask you, like, is there any reference for the position? So once you mention a reference, then for the employer, it's easy to verify like you can do the job or not. So I would suggest, like, if somebody is interested in contract instructor positions during this, temporary phase from international graduate to permanent residence, transformation, I would suggest like you should go to the web page of that particular university. For instance, in case of Carleton or econ department, we post contract instructor position on our web page, and same is true for other universities.
Yeah, and as international students, when I reflect back on my own experience, I remember establishing a relationship with your advisor, with your committee members. That's very, very important, because in an environment where everything is about who you are, what your experience is, what you can do, your skills, a recommendation from faculty members really helps support. It supports the application, the whole package. So what has your experience been on those dimensions? And well, since you're all Carleton alumni, what should we be doing to improve that process that can help future generations of international students?
Well, for academic positions, I would suggest, like, to international graduates, the first thing to do is talk to your, references. Like, once you apply for a job, your reference should be ready to post your references to the employer. Sometimes you get like 1 day or 2 day or even a very short period for the employer to verify references. So that part should be done at the very beginning. Like, you should know who is your reference, is ready to write for you, and what kind of information your reference need to write a reference letter. So that is the foremost important thing in any application to get academic positions. For instance, my application for Wilfrid Laurier, they asked me to send a separate list of reference, should not be the part of your resume or CV. And then apart from those references, they also ask you to give, how you get this information, like we are offering these positions. So you should be ready to provide that information,
I guess something that I could say is, I know finding references sometimes it's hard because some of the classes are with a lot of students, over 100, some of them. So something that I would suggest is, well, always go to the lectures, and I find it that sitting in front, interacting with the professor really helps to build a network and a connection, and then later they will help you to be references for your future job search.
For me, I found my professors extremely helpful. Like they supported me whenever I needed.
Mhm.
So when I was preparing my resume, I talked to my prof. Like I talked to him like, can I put him as my reference because I'm searching for a job? And I think that's very important. And they will never say no. And just I used 2 of my professors in my resume, so they were really helpful. They're always very, so you have to ask, as I have said, like you cannot be shy. You have to ask for yourself. And our professors are really good. Like I don't think from their end they need to do something. It's from our end or from the students' end. But I would recommend like having more workshops, because I know like while I was there, I was feeling so lost, like it's a vast sea. And for me, it was more stressful because I had a kid and I had so many other stress. So those workshops helped me. Those workshops enlighten me, because when someone comes to Canada from a different background, they don't know anything about it. So if someone who is here for a while and knows the tips and tricks for the job market, even a person can get a little bit out of that workshop, it's very helpful for them. So I would suggest like having those kind of workshop more often and like in structured way, like they know like they are having every 3 months or every 6 months, so they know like they can be helped, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, and related to that point is this idea that letting faculty members know in advance, like Mumtaz was saying earlier, that you're going to be looking for jobs, and I think that also gives them an idea of how to support you in that job search. I think that's very, very important. Oftentimes, even if you have, we talk about Canadian experience, and you're accumulating very high quality human capital. But oftentimes, if you are in transition and you have to work at a coffee shop or something, how does the Canadian experience matter there? Like I can see that, if there is some specialized job there, yes, it may matter. But if it's something kind of, a front-facing service, how does that Canadian experience there? What's the relevance of that?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I did a little bit of networking before I started searching for jobs. And the way it helps, like you have to connect your experience. Suppose when you are serving coffee at Tim Hortons or McDonald's, you're under pressure, right? Because people are coming there giving order, or if you're taking order for drive away, you cannot make mistakes. And sometimes you have to deal with angry customers, like they might yell at you, but you have to keep your calm down. So you need to be able to relate that. Because, for example, I started my work in Scotiabank. So there I had that question, like, give me an example how you dealt an angry customer, So I gave an example from back home while I was working in a bank, but they wanted to know something in Canadian market. So yeah, you worked in Lane. Did you face any customer like that? And how did you solve that problem then? So it's all about managing yourself and managing the situation. So if you can manage Walmart or like Tim Hortons or whatever, you can manage, you can bring that or transmit that experience in the other job as well. If you are having like some kind of related like customer service, it has to be, well, if someone works at Tim Hortons and he applies for a data scientist work, there is very less relevance though. But meeting the deadline, like everything is time constrained, right? When you receive an order, you have to place the order in a specific time when it's a drive-through. So that also gives your time management capacity. So the employer looks at those little things. So you have to sell yourself. Like, yeah, I did this. I'm very good at time management. Like we had a deadline of 2 minutes, but I used to do it in 1.5 minutes, So that's how you can relate to the job that you're looking for. So you're very good at time management. You're very good at stress management. You're good with people. You're a people person. So that's how you can upsell yourself.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it has a lot of signaling value towards your job search.
Yeah.
So
I would like to add one more point. Apart from time management and all, customer face. Canadian experience also provide many other things. For example, like how to deal with harassment issues, because all these employers by law provide training in terms of like how to deal with harassment issue, health and safety issues. So somebody who is hiring, if he sees like you have Canadian experience, that means you are bringing that, all that training, workplace training, how to behave in a team environment, how to cooperate with other team members, time management, all this stuff. That basically add value for the new employer. That increase your likelihood to get hired for the new position.
Yeah, no, that's
I would agree with that. And even though the role might seem very different, there are definitely stuff that you can find in common. For example, data science role versus working in a coffee shop. I used to work as a barista. And one of the things that I mentioned on my resume, or how I related, is teamwork. So no matter if it's a very technical role, you will mostly often find yourself working in teams and working with people. So that's definitely something that you can always relate it to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, that's really very good to see how there are these different aspects of any experience that you gain can be used as to leverage your resume, your interview skills, and how you express yourself in that situation. We're coming to the last phase of our 1 hour gathering here. So do you have any kind of final thoughts on that you want to share? Say if you are in a situation to recruit international students, now that you are already in jobs, what would you say to them if you were to interview them?
Well, I would say like for academic positions like doctoral graduates, I would say like stay focused, like polish your research skills. That's where you are supposed to do, like produce research,
Right. Yeah.
and get experience in academia. It does not matter whether the position is contract position or is a tenure-track position. Every time you teach a course, undergraduate or graduate level, that adds value to your CV, and that's basically increases your likelihood to get full-time or tenure-track position in academia. So I would suggest like stay focused, polish your research skills, keep producing research, and continue to attend workshops, especially research seminars, job market talks that is relevant to your research area, that gives you more ideas to conduct more research. So rest of the requirements, legal requirements, immigration status requirement will come by time, and that over this time period, the things you add to your CV will help you to get full-time positions.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a really good point. Sort of focusing on things that are in your control is the sort of the main way to enhance your resume and be in a position that when the opportunity arrives, you're there. Oftentimes, when the program finishes, some international students sort of go back to their home countries and then put a pause in their search. Would you recommend that strategy, or would you think that either way could be okay, where you can, I guess, Andrea, you went back to Mexico, but it was an online environment, so you were still continuing to look for internships. So I guess in an online setting, it's less of a concern, but if the potential employer wants to meet in person, then of course you have to be here.
Yes.
So is there any general thing that you want to share?
Well, I guess that depends on their end goal. If their end goal is, to go back to their home country, well, not much suggestion there. But in terms of here, try to get as much Canadian experience as possible, whether it's working in your field or while you're studying in something similar. As we said, you will always get something out of it that will help you in the future. So apply as much as you can.
And so rather than break the time period of your job search in sort of going away for a couple of months or 2-3 months and then coming back, it's preferable to not interrupt that and sort of gain more work experience and then use that in your job search. Yeah.
As an international graduate, I will not take that, especially during pandemic and COVID-19 situation. It's an evolving situation. Recently, we see a surge of COVID-19 cases that are coming from China.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that because of these requirements to enter in a country or leave a country or testing requirements, there is a possibility you're stuck somewhere and you lose opportunities to get hired for a job. So I will not take a risk, leaving Canada and taking a break.
Yeah. And so any other advice or recommendation that you would want to give our viewers on job search and how, I mean, you've made some excellent points.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think you would like to add?
Well, about the last question with the break, I just want to add, I saw one of my friends, like he got frustrated. So the point is, don't get frustrated. Start anything you can get. So he went back home and he cut off ties because he had that kind of tunnel effect. I guess he was seeing like all of them are getting good jobs, but he's not being able to get a good job because he's not a PR or a citizen. So he got himself very much depressed and he went back. And the thing happened is it prolonged his possibility to get in the Canadian market. So if there's other issue you want to go back by all means. But if you want to go back because you're not finding a job, I would say don't give up. Start with anything and it will pay you off in one way or other. And the most important thing I would suggest is be confident. There is no alternative of being confident. Practice your when you get an interview call, it's very important to practice. So do your research on the company that you apply, learn everything as much as possible, know their strength, know their specialty, because you will have questions. They like to know. You'll always have a question in one form or other, like why this company, why you want to work for us. So that's the point. You need to show them that you know all about it. You are very enthusiastic to work for them. So that's the thing the employer wants to hear from you. So be confident, make Excel sheet the way I worked. I had an Excel sheet and each sheet for each company. And I had my questions, like the common questions they ask, usually in an interview. There are lots of resources on internet. Go through them. You will see yourself like which one is more relevant, right? So jot them down, prepare your answer. Answer for each company will be different. You cannot give a generic answer.
Wrong answer.
Yeah. And before your interview, that worked for me. I practiced. So if possible, practice with your friend. If there is no one, practice in front of the mirror. Look at your body language, how you look when you talk, the way you dress up, your posture, everything is very important to stand out. Yeah.
That's very good. Well, I just want to thank you all for coming here on this snowy day and sharing your experiences. And I hope it was our audience who are remotely attending, I hope they can benefit from the information and knowledge that you shared. So thank you once again. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Court Lindsay, my assistant, who has helped us in organizing this. So thank you, Court. And I also want to say that it goes back a little bit to what Andrea mentioned earlier about economic data science, which is one of the concentrations, a new concentration in our program. We are continuing to organize the Center for Monetary and Financial Economics that I'm a co-director of here at Carleton. We're going to be organizing specialized workshops, and one of the workshops that's coming up in a few months is related to jobs and economic data science. So that's going to be of interest to students who are in the data science area. And I also want to mention that the Ottawa Economic Association is hosting, in collaboration with the Department of Economics, a career and professional development event on February 9th. And Mumtaz is going to be part of that event. I think we will send out an information to whoever registered, all the people who registered today. We will provide that information. And there is going to be some discussion of international students in that forum. So I think it's something for our audience to consider attending. So once again, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And it's always nice to see our alumni. So thank you.